All right. I'm here with Eric Lee. This is Gonna See My Friends podcast.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you, dude.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. It truly is an honor. I appreciate it.
Oh, man. Oh, I'm honored to be here. Dude, thanks for the invitation. It's fun
Yeah,
talking
no
about
problem.
movies.
Yeah, it is. You do it all the time. For those of you that don't know Eric Lee, he's an up and coming artist, country artist. He's got some music out there floating around the internet. Um, let's see. He's got his new single. What is it? Always on My Mind.
Yeah.
Which is a cover of the Willie Nelson song, correct? Is that right?
Yeah, well, he's got the most famous version for sure, but Elvis did it, and Brenda Lee, which similar name over here, she was the first one to do it actually. So
nice. Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
but real happy with I'm real happy with the way it came out though. It's different kind of take on it, more acoustic and intimate.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. And at the end of this podcast, I'll put out, or we'll talk about where you can listen to it and record it and all that good stuff.
I appreciate you.
But for now, I have him on my podcast to talk about movies, and this is one that you recommend or you wanted to do. And I haven't, to tell you the truth, I've seen bits and pieces of this throughout the last almost was it 20-something years. I remember seeing it in the theaters, and then as the internet got bigger and bigger, I would see bits and pieces here and there, and so going back to it, I watched it. Was it two nights ago?
Yeah, same.
And it still has that kind of chilling factor to it for me, anyways.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, man, like the build up to the end, because I feel like, I don't know, are you a big Rocky fan?
Oh, yeah.
The Rocky movies?
Love the Rocky movies. I was just watching Rocky IV, that speech that he gives at the end.
Yeah.
So good. So good. Yeah.
So this reminds me of Rocky. Yeah, this reminds me of Rocky 2, because you get the basically the beginning is the end of the original Rocky, and then you have them going to the hospital and doing all that stuff, and then the middle was kind of, I don't know, for me it just kind of was like, oh, okay, all right, cool, all right, and then at the end it kind of gets fires you up again. And that's kind of how I always felt about this movie, because at the beginning you're kind of like, oh, here it comes. I mean, at least for me.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, here it comes. All right, we're in
it.
That's
interesting.
And then in the middle, it just kind of becomes, okay, all right, okay. And then like the last, 20 minutes, 15 minutes is just like, woo.
Oh, yeah.
That's what really gets me.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts about the movie?
I have very vivid memories about this movie, and I thought I'd pick this movie because we're in Halloween time. It's my favorite holiday. I love all the holidays, but this one is my favorite. I love, I just love dressing up, and I also love going to the haunted houses, with friends and and pranking people, scaring people is always funny. And so this one is, it scared the heck out of me. I have vivid memories of it because it released in 1999, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And the commercials must have been running in 98. And I was living in South Florida with my grandmother. And my grandmother raised me and my brother, and she used to leave the TV on all the time. And I think that this movie is obviously innovative because it's the first, well, it's the biggest, at least, found footage movie, the most successful one. I believe it's the first.
Yeah, I think it kind of started off,
in its own genre, in a sense. But the marketing was some of the best I'd ever seen, till this day for a horror movie. The commercials, I remember, were just this guerrilla style of promotion for the movie, and everybody had the creeps. And I was, so in 98, I'm 12 years old, and you get up for a glass of water or to use the bathroom, and it's dark out, but the TV, the CRT box television in the living room still on, and that commercial comes on, and it scared the hell out of me every time, always. But it also piqued my interest. I was that guy that, loved scary movies because they scared the heck out of me, but I was also really interested in them, like Nightmare on Elm Street. has always been one of my favorites. And also it's the initials of my full legal name, Eric Lee McNeely. And so like
Oh,
I always got a kick out of that, but like yeah, but it's fun, man. I loved this movie, and my grandmother is such a badass. She'd always take me to see all the movies,
oh,
no
okay.
matter what, it could have all the curse words in them, could be a really scary
Yeah.
movie. So
Oh, yeah.
she took me to see this movie in theaters in '99, and there was a huge storm, in South Florida at the time, but that's normal when you live there. And
Yeah.
so we go
Yeah.
see the movie and it's pouring outside and I'm hyped for the movie and I can't wait, to see what happens. And, and we'll talk about the rest of the movie, but
Right.
at the climax, right when there's only a few minutes left of the movie,
Yeah.
the power goes out.
Oh,
And the
no.
movie, well, you say, "Oh no," but in
Right.
my head, I'm thinking, that's awesome. The filmmakers got the power to shut down in the movie theater, like, I thought that was on purpose, I'm younger at the
Oh, I
time,
see.
and it
Yeah.
scared the heck out of me, but also I thought, "That's awesome." Like, I thought,
Well,
"Whoa."
kinda like an interactive experience or something.
I thought, like, did they just have, like, the projectionists just have access to the lights in the theater? But then, like, a few minutes went by and then the power came on and then
Yeah.
it ended, and that ending is
Uh,
always bone chilling. But
yeah.
I
Yeah.
have vivid memories of this movie, when it came out, and the cast, I think really did a great job with the film.
Yeah.
Like, they really carried that movie and made it believable. When I was watching it the other night, it still holds up in my opinion.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that the acting too is kind of what for me is what carries on the interest for me anyways. Because it's kind of sad of what happened. I mean, in terms of like their careers after this movie. But I think for this movie, like, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit too as well. But I think, yeah, the acting in this is kind of like it's like I think it captures the '90s pretty well because I think back then,
Yeah, it takes place in
especially for
'94,
movies,
right?
yeah,
No,
right.
it's kinda
So
funny because I've just went camping, all summer long, and I'm looking at what they're wearing, the blue jeans, and then, like, they got these necklaces on. They're, like, really trying to play in, like, they got
yeah,
the one, Josh has got the flannel shirt on with the
flannels, yeah,
necklaces, like he's a '90s rocker, like an
yeah,
early '90s rocker, and it's kinda funny. It's just like nobody would be wearing that stuff backpacking in the woods,
right,
which is the
right.
one kinda funny, maybe faux pas about it. But then again, they're like beginner filmmakers too, so, who
Right.
knows?
Well, speaking of to that point of beginning filmmaking, and what you kind of touched on at the beginning there was this idea that this was kind of the first of its kind in terms of the found footage type of movie,
Sure.
but it also took advantage of the internet, which was just kind of beginning this like nascent internet, thing of like no one really knew how to use it or how to, because nowadays it's just a given that you can go on all these social media sites. But back then, I mean, you had kids that had these, these camcorders. And I remember in the 80s when my uncle got one, it was kind of like the boxy one that you put on your shoulder and then you put the viewfinder on your eye. And then some of them even had a wire that went to like the VHS, and you would either put it on your waist or, I mean, it was
Oh,
just a big
yeah. I
production
think I
to
remember
do it.
that. I do remember
Right.
that. Yeah, it's crazy.
So
I had the
now
ni
you had this.
I had the
Go ahead.
'90s camcorder and an early 2000s, stuff.
Oh,
I
you did?
would go with my friends in Florida, when they'd go
Right.
skateboarding. I was the
Yeah.
guy usually that was filming, like, not trying to
Sweet.
break my arm or anything, but
Well, see
yeah,
that, so that you could
I
probably
needed him to
speak
play
to this.
guitar. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. So you could probably speak to this because what I was kind of trying to get at was it was this idea of the people at that time, their relationship to cameras, because now, everybody has a camera, your phone has a camera. And back then, and people nowadays, I think, for the most part, you see someone either taking a selfie or taking a video, or they're talking to their phone or whatever. And for me, when I see that, I don't care. I just walk by, and it doesn't really affect me.
Oh, sure.
But back then, I think people's relationship with cameras were a little different because you had to have it, and it was this not big bulky, but it was this thing that you put to your eye, or maybe you had a viewfinder, but it
Yeah.
was this thing, and people were kind of more, at least I was a little more conscious of like, I'm being recorded. I'm being recorded, which was this weird thing because I didn't have friends that had cameras like that or anything like that. In the '80s, I was more like that. We would always use my uncle's camera, but
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, so I guess my question is, do you feel that it was a different time for cameras back then?
Oh, absolutely. I think
Yeah,
it was much more of a what's the thing here? It was much more special, I think, when
yeah,
you would get on camera or when you'd film something. It
yeah.
wasn't as accessible, obviously, and so people, I
Right,
think, they're just, I mean, it's easy to take a lot of things for granted, but it's
right.
just like, "Oh, I'm just gonna film myself and put myself out there to the world, and maybe, a few thousand people or 100,000 people on TikTok will see it," you know?
Yeah, yeah,
So it's a whole different time, and social media, it's really interesting, the way that young generations. I've got an 11-year-old niece, and luckily, my brother is an amazing father. She's got an
right,
amazing mom, and so I don't think she's too shooken up by that beast yet. I
right.
also don't think she's really allowed on it, which is, I mean, in my opinion, great. I think she's
Yeah,
too
yeah,
young in
yeah,
my
yeah.
opinion. But she seems to go to a good school with good, good community. But I do know that, it's hard, I think, on your mind, psychologically these days, and just the bombardment of
Yeah,
media, just scrolling through, and just every second,
yeah.
and then trying to contribute to that, as somebody who
Oh,
is a,
yeah.
musician, content creator, in 2024, it can get pretty, overwhelming for sure. But it was
Well,
a huge difference filming yourself
yeah.
back then, and
Oh,
because then,
yeah.
and
It
then
was
you
much more novel. Yeah.
was much more novel, and, you'd need a distributor, I guess, to share that video. Now,
Yeah.
there wasn't social media.
Right.
YouTube is still, relatively new. I can't think of the year. I mean, compared to TikTok, it's older, I guess,
Right. Right.
but yeah, no, back then you'd film something, and you'd have a small little tape, like
Yeah.
those. I mean, there's various types of, the one that I had, though, from the early 2000s or the late
It was
90s.
like
There's these
AV or
small,
something.
little
Yeah.
tapes you put in,
Yeah.
and then that would eventually wear out too. But you'd
Right.
get, you know, me and my
I
friends.
had the V
Yeah.
I had the VHS ones, the big square ones that
Oh,
were
yeah. Oh, sure.
yeah,
I've seen those too. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, I mean, we used to film ourselves, Battle of the Bands shows, or
Oh,
trying to
man.
reenact something stupid we saw on the Jackass show. We'd go to, like, a parking lot and, you know, run each other into a thing of bushes,
Yeah.
with a shopping cart.
Yeah. Uh,
So that's what I remember using the camera for, back then. So it's, yeah, way different time.
yeah. Yeah, definitely, man. And I think it kind of broke ground to this movie, at least, broke ground because it was the first kind of using the internet, or first media to use the internet in such an inventive way at the time. Because I think too, this was, every kind of, I don't know, kind of jump in, um I don't know, like pop culture or something. There's always the innovator. So there was always, like, the Beatles, or in music, or like the one thing movie wise that jumps out to me was like the Die Hard, in the late '80s. It was like, I think it was 88, 87, 88.
Sure.
And that became the thing of like, well, that everything else is Die Hard in a ship, or Die Hard on a train. And
That's so funny.
so,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
becomes
Speed.
this thing. And I think for this, it became like the found footage. It became this thing because I was reading in some article that I was reading, that Jason Blum, who does Blumhouse,
Yeah,
has his own production company now, was
yeah.
working for um, Miramax, I think, and they
Okay.
passed on this
On the Blair Witch
because
Project.
yeah, and he was the one that passed on it. He was like, "Ah, this ain't gonna do nothing,"
Yeah, when
and then it
I
got
read it had a
terrible.
budget of 60,000 and then
Yes,
and then it got 250,000,000
50,000,000,
worldwide. Yeah, it's
and
crazy.
that's the
And
thing.
I also
Yeah,
hear that
that's
they screwed over the actors too, which is kind
yes,
of
that's what I was
and
gonna
I don't
jump on.
and I know that there's like a I don't know if it's confirmed either way or not, but if that is the case, that's messed up. That's not cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, because you think about it, and what we were kind of talking about earlier, you know, there was producers and the people that made up the idea and kind of put it in motion, but these actors like filmed what 80, 90, like probably all of it
Yeah.
themselves. They acted in it. You know, they're out in the wild. It took them 8 days out walking around,
Yeah, they
you
got
know,
like
being cold.
$1,000 a day or something, each one of them
Yeah.
or something
And
small like that.
then that's it because they didn't get any kind of you know, residuals. They didn't get any kind of back end stuff, which is like, you know, you hit a certain amount of number, you get a bonus. You know, if it gets sold, you get a certain amount. Nothing.
No,
And
they made that movie. I mean, come
yeah.
on, you know?
Oh yeah.
Okay, it's funny, you know, I think, I was really appreciating the level of performance when I watched it 2 nights ago just to kind of brush up on it, and it had been years since I've seen it, and,
Yeah.
I was really impressed with how the movie was, you know, was mainly performed, I'd have to say. The lead actress
Yeah.
really is impressive in that
She did a
movie.
great job. Yeah.
You know, I mean, all the actors were. You know, it's funny, just like even that guy Mike is such a character in that movie too. Like when he like
Yeah.
you know losing his mind and rips up the map, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
Kicks it in the river or something.
Yeah, sheesh.
Yeah. That's to hear all that too is interesting because the girl Heather Donahue, who plays Heather obviously in the movie,
Okay, cool.
um she ended up she had a couple of other roles after this, but she ended up being growing medical marijuana or growing marijuana for medical purposes
Oh, okay.
back in like 2008.
I hope she did well.
And she was that
I hope she did well
yeah,
with
she
it.
put out a book about growing and got into it, but I think
Great.
she ended up changing her name like a couple years ago because
Mm.
of the backlash from this movie. I don't know why. She said she had some like encounters with fans that were kind of threatening and she just didn't, you know, she just didn't want to be a part of it anymore. I think
That's
in
crazy.
when Blumhouse kind of got the rights to it in 2012 or 14.
Oh, dang, so he eventually got the rights?
I think
So,
so. I
he
think so. I
passes up
think it's
on it
Blumhouse.
and
Yeah.
that's a cool story.
Well, whoever has it now, let's just put it that way, because I think that was it. But they asked her, you know, hey, do you want to be a part of this? And she was like, no. And she got really kind of depressed because she's like, well, I don't have control of my image. You know, it's gone. But the people that
Damn.
remade it, I think in 18, kept her name out, kept her likeness out.
What
They didn't
wait,
refer to her.
there was a remake?
Yeah, they
I
remade it. I think in 16 or 18.
I remember the sequel, which I gave a
Yeah,
shot, in the early 2000s.
yeah.
And then I remember there's a video game, The Blair Witch, which
Oh, really?
that's pretty creepy. You know, I was
Yeah.
trying it on PS5 and you're wandering through the woods.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, company, Bloober Team, they just remade Silent Hill 2, which that is I'm in the middle of, playing that at night,
Uh-huh.
and that is that's nightmare fuel as far as
Oh,
that goes.
geez.
But it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But, you know, no, but that I didn't know that there was a remake of the film actually, and, you know, I feel like
Yeah,
I
there's
do remember seeing now it comes to mind, but I haven't seen it yet. I mean, did you see it? How did it
no, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
You know, the thing,
I wish I would've
you know,
known. I
just
would've
doing
made it a
res
point to watch it. I would've been like, "You
yeah,
know what?
well, in
Let's
the
see."
research of all this,
Yeah.
I read about it and, you know, I'm kinda like with you, I'm kinda with the artists on this thing is that, you know, if they really kinda got, like, held out from any kind of monetary compensation, which is understandable in the sense that you expect that from big corporation or people that make a lot of money at once.
Yeah.
There's always something that
But the way
goes
they did
wrong,
it,
and
from what I've
yeah,
heard as well, is so egregious. It's just
yeah,
so messed up. It's like, come
yeah.
on, everybody
It's
can
like
win here, you know?
I mean, I have a buddy that's in IT, and he was saying that he worked for this guy. There was 5 of them, I think, and they were programming this, and they built this company up, and the owner ended up making millions on millions of dollars in the sale because he ended up selling this company,
Yeah.
and they had to sue him to get any kind of compensation from the sale because they were like, we were the ones that spent like 24/7 building this company
Yeah.
out for you to sell it, which is fine. But then you don't give us, you give us like, I think they got like 20 grand each or something.
Sheesh.
And there was this like, no, hold on. So they had to, and eventually they got their due, but it's always kind of that story, where people can kind of, well, if I can screw you in business, anyways, it seems like if I can screw you over, I will. It's business, not personal. It's business. It's like, well,
Yeah, and well, the people that run their businesses, that conduct themselves that way in business, are usually the most unhappy people that you'll
right,
meet. And
right,
so karma's a bitch.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I hope that those actors all, did well though. I mean,
yeah,
they were extremely talented, and they made that movie as memorable and iconic as it is. It's such a moment in pop culture. Everybody was talking about it.
yeah.
And then it was
Oh yeah.
parodied and went on to be parodied. Like Sherry O'Terry from SNL did that. Was it in Scary Movie when she's
I
like,
never saw any of the scary movies,
oh
but are they
man,
good?
so
Yeah.
funny, so hilarious. I feel like you'd find it funny.
Okay.
I don't know
I'll
if it
check them out.
still holds up, with I can't be held accountable for the entire. I haven't seen it in a while to today's PC standards. I want to be respectful,
Right, right,
but
right.
it's like it still is
Well, they
pretty. I think it's all in good fun. The Wayans
right.
brothers are, those guys are comedy geniuses.
Well, I come from Airplane and Naked Gun,
Oh
and
yeah,
so I think
this is a
I
similar
would
thing.
probably find it fun. All
I
right,
love
cool.
Airplane.
Oh yeah, dude.
Oh my,
Airplane and Airplane 2, I think those are the I mean, for me, I was a kid when I watched those, so it was like 81, 82, 83,
yeah.
and so the humor in there, it definitely it doesn't stand up, but it's still funny as
No, I
hell,
think
man.
it does. I mean,
Uh,
every time it's on, I watch it,
yeah.
and there's a scene, and I'm such a child, with this. But when the guy goes, "Oh, the shit really has hit the fan," and then
Oh
they
yeah,
cut to
yeah,
the shit hitting the fan, kills me every time. Like I just lose it.
yeah.
It's just so stupid,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that whole. I think they kind of, the I forget the creators of that, but they ended up doing the Naked Gun Files from
Oh,
Police Squad too,
yeah, Leslie Nielsen,
and
the
yeah,
man.
those are great. Those
Yeah,
are great.
yeah.
Um, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say, oh man, I had something. See, this is what happens when you get older. You just
You're good, man.
fleeting,
The beauty of
fleeting.
editing.
Oh,
But
that's true.
do you remember going on, like, the early internet, the Blair Witch website? Like, do you remember seeing what that was all about? Because that was
Oh,
creepy as well. I have a
that
vague.
just reminded me of what I was gonna say. Yeah,
Okay,
go
so
ahead,
what were
keep
you
going.
what were you gonna say? And we'll get back to
Well,
the.
I was gonna say, so the thing that I remember from this movie, because I went and saw it here in Santa Rosa, um, the thing that I remember, which was I remember the ads for it on TV, but I also remember the controversy, and it wasn't what you think it was. It was that when people went and saw this movie, they would come out being sick,
Oh, that's
motion
right.
sickness,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that was what kind of was like for me. Oh, okay, and it was kind of at the end of my pot smoking career, and I think it was
Career.
kind of like
It was a career.
I made it a career. And it was kind of like my last days, and so
Did you smoke before seeing this movie?
oh
You're
yeah,
puking
yeah, yeah,
out, man.
definitely. And no, it didn't affect me at all that way. So
Oh,
that's
that's
why I
funny.
was like, but in everything that I've read, I watched it and everything to do the podcast today. Nothing no one mentions it, but I remember it clearly. Like that was when it was on the news. It was on the news, and it was like, yeah, people are experiencing motion sickness, and it was like
Yeah.
it was a big thing. And I wanted to ask you, was that a thing? Do you remember that, or
Uh,
was that
I think that when I saw it in theaters, I was young enough and spry enough to just like not be
yeah,
bothered too much about it.
right,
But watching it, objectively the other night,
yeah,
it makes you think that, with found footage movies, you kind of have to take, I think, creative strategy with with the camera work.
right,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, you do want it to be believable. They're not always going to be obviously like running with it in eye view with it
right,
stable,
yeah,
but I do think that you do have to think about the viewer, right? You have to think about who your audience is, and
right,
that's going to make people sick. Another thing I noticed besides that too was the sound design solely was from the camera, and so there was no
yeah,
sound design. And in
yeah. There's no music either. Yeah,
and which is well, the no music thing is fine, but
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but I would say as somebody who produces music, and I don't do audio sound design for picture, but I do always appreciate great sound design because of my
right,
involvement in the music
yeah, yeah,
industry.
yeah,
And I do think that, they, these found footage movies can, and I do see these newer ones taking more creative liberties with making their sound design, playing with surround sound, number one,
yeah, right,
and also playing with the dynamic range. It's just adding noises that doesn't take you out of this found footage thing, but
right,
enhances it, because your average
yeah,
audience goer isn't going to, I mean, sure, the filmmakers might be purists and they'd say we must only use the sound from the
right,
camera, but I think that enhancing it, it enhances it for the audience, and the same goes for, I think, they could have maybe found other ways to tell
hmm,
the story without,
yeah,
running with it.
yeah,
But but it was the first movie, and that being said, it's on a small budget, it's still remarkable how good it is and
yeah,
how great it
yeah,
holds up. And like, there's a lot of other found footage movies. I just watched one the other night where, and we could talk about that next, but to where it was really good, but it didn't feel Blair Witch good,
yeah.
you know?
Well, I think that's the what's the word? That's the beauty, I guess, of kind of being a forerunner is that you get to set these kind of standards, which I think, talking about the sound of it, I kind of agree with you because I was wondering where they got the sound for the 16 millimeter part of it because he had the 16 millimeter camera, and then he had
Yeah. No, they
a
had, because
cam.
it was and I noticed in the end of the movie when she's screaming,
Yeah,
"Josh,"
yeah,
"Josh," she's screaming that in the background, you hear it coming from his camera. I guess he had the color camera that had the audio
yeah,
attached to it, and then when she had the black and white camera, the 16
right,
millimeter,
yeah,
but the audio signal was coming from his camera,
the
so
cam,
she
yeah,
sounded really far away,
yeah, yeah,
and that is cool. That I
yeah,
think is a cool, happy, probably happy accident, or, a technical thing that makes sense
right,
for that. But there's certain things where I might have added additional like loud impact hits to, further scare
mhm,
the audience, or
yeah,
maybe some ambient stuff happening, or just some surround stuff,
yeah.
would go a long way.
Yeah, because especially because they're in the forest, and
Yeah.
you're crunching on leaves,
Well, and even the
and
voices, I
yeah.
would have maybe enhanced those voices, and, you know, we
Oh, I see.
we've got
I
a
got you.
we've got a, I've got a sound bar, but with some wireless, rear
Yeah,
speakers, that, and so I noticed it was all just, from there was
in
none
the
of that
front.
happening,
Yeah,
and
right.
I thought, like, that would be pretty cool if they put some of the voices behind you. That would have raised the stakes up quite a bit.
Well,
Yeah.
that's interesting that you bring that up because I remember in 89, 88, 89, 90, in that area. I got my first job at Round Table, and so I was bringing in some cash. I got it over the summer, so I was able to work like 3 or 4 days a week,
Oh, cool.
and got my first like checking account and all that kind of stuff. One of my first big purchases was a surround sound,
Oh
which I
yeah.
don't think I hooked it up right because I didn't understand that all the back speakers are not going to emit everything. It's
Yeah.
just for the lower end or whatever it
Well,
was
for
that's set
for
up.
for like the stuff that is decided by the
Right.
filmmaker,
Like a
or
yeah.
any or the series, whatever, to go to that channel, one of
Right.
those channels.
Yeah. And
It can be
so
quite convoluted to set up a system
yeah.
like that.
Well, I had no idea too. You had to have a high was it a high def or something VHS.
Yeah.
So I bought a high def VHS, and
Oh,
at that
VHSs
time
did
there was
surround, huh?
yeah,
Oh,
and
I would
this
love to
was
see
like
what that sounds like.
yeah, this was like the beginning of the '90s, I think. So it was kind of everything was kind of stepping up, and then so yeah, I thought that I was supposed to hear, and so I didn't hear any noise coming out, and I could, so I just disconnected them. I was like, screw this. I got screwed out of like $300 or whatever it was,
Yeah.
and yeah, that was my first experience with surround sound because
Ah, bummer.
I wanted to be an audiophile. I had a sick stereo system. I had a 10 thing equalizer. I had 2 tape decks.
Yeah.
You know, I had a receiver and
Oh,
these kick
cool.
ass uh, speakers.
I bet
So
it sounded
yeah,
great.
yeah. I mean, my CD. You know, it was when CDs were first coming in, so I was buying CDs,
Yeah.
and it was a, oh man, you're making me reminisce on those times.
No,
Those good times.
yeah, I had booklets, man, of CDs. I still have, a booklet, favorite CDs somewhere in the
Yeah.
house.
Well,
But,
not to get
yeah, what were we gonna
oh,
say?
go ahead.
Well,
Oh, I was
I
gonna
was
say, "Hit it, hit
Yeah.
it." I'm starting to buy physical media again
Oh,
because,
cool.
so because I had a movie that I had on iTunes and their license to carry it, I suppose, didn't get renewed or something happened
Yeah,
and they
and you
pulled
can
it
lose
from my
it.
library.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know, you can
and I
lose it.
lost it.
Yeah.
So that scared me. So I was like, well, I'm gonna start. So I'm a big vinyl guy now. I
Vinyl's
buy
great too.
tapes,
I collect
cassettes.
vinyl myself. Yeah.
Yeah, cassettes and CDs. I'm starting to buy. I go to my local record store and I buy like they have $1.99 CDs and dollar tapes,
Yeah.
cassettes, and so I'm starting to buy all that stuff again. And yeah, starting to just my because before in the '90s and up until probably about 2009, I was a big DVD guy. I had a huge collection of
I remember
DVDs.
when it first came out, and the first
Yeah.
movie I got, which is kinda
Which
weird,
was
The Exorcist, the director's cut on
uh,
and it had I'm a big like I said, I'm a big horror movie fan, Halloween fan, and, it's just so creepy. I haven't seen it in years because, I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel like the older you get, the more and I'm not much of a religious guy per se,
right,
but I
right.
still don't wanna bring that evil in my house, man. It's just like it's just real that movie crosses some lines for sure,
Yeah. Well,
and the
yeah,
analog quality of that in the film, the quality of the film is just terrifying, and the voice and how
yeah,
the tape
yeah,
distortion on the voice. I don't know how it just sounds, oh my god, it's terrifying. I guess they got some, like, crotchety, British
yeah.
dude to just do the voice of Reagan when I
No, it
think
was a
about it.
lady. It was a lady. It
Oh, it's
was a
a
lady.
lady. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
and
She
she
smoked
smoked and drank while
20
she was
20 packs a day.
yeah, and while she was doing the audio,
Yeah.
she was just smoking a lot, and because they wanted that, you
It's
know,
crazy, but I remember
yeah,
so this is the director's cut, and it was even worse. The stuff that they had to cut out, there was that,
yeah,
like, I don't know if you remember this, but the crab walk scene where she goes
yeah,
down
yeah,
the
yeah,
stairs and
yeah,
they had to cut that out. That's, like, too intense for the '70s,
yeah,
the
yeah,
audiences were already passing out, and then you had, these hidden faces of
yeah.
the demon in the like tiny, like coming, it'd be in like the
Yeah.
screen. And I would be so fascinated with like, I'm like, whoa, where's it gonna turn up? You know, I'm like watching
Yeah.
with the new high definition DVD, which was
Yeah.
really 480p, which is kind of
Uh-huh.
crazy. And
Yeah.
then what's kind of funny is a lot of people don't realize is, and I could be wrong actually, but if I remember correctly, then Blu-ray was 720p only, and then it was Ultra Blu-ray, which finally got to 1080p or HD Blu-ray,
Yeah.
and now you
Yeah.
have 4K Blu-ray, which is, you know, that's when I started getting to the point where I was done with physical media. At least vinyl
Uh-huh.
is a different story because that's a whole
Right.
experience and the large
Yeah.
artwork and the richness of the sound. You know, it sounds different than a digital mix. But
Right.
I kind of had it at that point where I'd have DVDs, and then I got the Blu-rays, and then the HD Blu-rays came out. Now you got
Yeah.
4K, and it's like,
Oh yeah.
and now you got Dolby Vision, which is
Uh-huh.
like, pretty cool technology actually.
Yeah.
I really am impressed by like the colors and the dynamic range. But so it's like a hard trade-off though, because I also hear the argument of, if you buy something, they can just take it from you, which is kind of
Yeah.
lame.
It's you're
Yeah.
buying a license, I guess. And so
Yep.
um there was this hoopla recently with Disney Plus taking off the first, I think, 3 or 4 Indiana Jones movies,
Mm.
and people were like, "Well, what's going on?" And they're going, I guess they're going to Paramount Plus or whatever. But a lot of, I think I saw it on Threads, and a lot of the
Oh, Indiana Jones is
responses to
is
that
is getting off iTunes. Crazy.
is it?
No, you were saying Indiana
No,
Jones?
it's
Oh, the or what?
well, no, it's getting off of Disney Plus.
Oh, okay.
The
Well,
Yeah,
that makes
and
sense. Well, they have like
yeah,
yeah,
a licensing deal
a
or
licensing
the
deal to
script.
Scream. But
Yeah,
is it being removed off of, like, the iTunes Store? I mean, because that's
no, I don't
when
think so.
if people
I
buy
don't think
it,
so.
because
Yeah,
my brother, he always tells me he's got this big collection of, like, almost 2,000 movies or something,
yeah, yeah,
and he's got, some of us on a family sharing plan, so it's kind of a
yeah,
neat, deal for
yeah.
me, and, but he told me that same thing. He's like, "They could take any of my movies anytime." I just found
Uh,
out, and so
well, that's
he
what.
stopped
So on
doing it.
Threads, yeah.
Yeah.
So on Threads, the response was, "Well, just buy the physical copy. They can't take that away."
Yeah, they
And
can't.
that's what got me thinking. Was like, "Oh, okay.
No, I get it.
Maybe I should start." Yeah.
I
So
know. Now if they have the 4K with the HDR or the Dolby Vision, if you have that until they come out with the 8K, whatever the next thing is, or
yeah,
then, but I feel like 4K is pretty high
yeah,
def,
yeah.
and
I don't. I wouldn't go past that. I mean, even
yeah,
if they're offering me any, I would just. I mean, for me,
you think
Blu-ray is good enough.
You think
Yeah.
I watched, Back to the Future, man, and, 'cause my brother bought it off the iTunes Store, and I guess
Mhm.
they always update, while the licensing deal is
No.
good, they
Yeah.
update the quality of the movie. So first for many years it was HD, which was great. Now it's 4K,
Yeah.
and then they
Yeah.
did a Dolby Vision rendition of it, which the
Oh.
colors look
Oh,
incredible.
really?
There's all
Oh,
like this.
wow.
Yeah, I guess Dolby Vision is, like, really good at color nuance, so I don't know the actual numbers, but if there's, like, a million colors before in a standard 4K,
Mhm.
standard, thing, Dolby Vision has millions of color nuance added,
Oh, wow.
and what it's known for is the shadows and the pure blacks
Yeah.
in the film are much more, like, true, and so it's pretty cool. It, like, utilizes, a TV, that can do that,
Yeah.
and so, like, yeah, it, like, shuts off the LEDs in certain parts to give you, like, a true black
Oh,
portion of the
wow.
screen. So it's like
Okay.
it's pretty neat if you're a which you are, a cinephile. It's
Yeah.
I love this kinda thing, so,
Yeah. Well,
Marina
that's,
makes fun of me for it, but my wife, as you know,
well,
you're talking.
has there been a Blu-ray? I haven't even seen a Blu-ray or a Ultra Blu-ray of Blair Witch. Have you seen one of those?
No, I doubt it. I streamed it in
Mm.
HD. I mean, like, what's the
Yeah.
point at
Right.
it is
Because at
what
some
it
point,
is.
it's just yeah.
It's a grainy looking camera. I don't think they're
Yeah.
gonna get any, people are just
Yeah.
gonna buy that movie regardless.
Right.
But, yeah, no, there are certain movies though, like, they're still, like, updating movies to 4K, which is always cool to see,
Yeah.
because I always like to revisit some of the best movies and, like, see the director's vision,
Yeah.
you know?
I think that movie Blade Runner had a lot of upgrades. Not even just director's cut, final cut, that kind of thing, but also the upgrades to, 4K and Dolby and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I like to say, hey, so do you have any favorite? What are your favorite scenes from this Blair Witch?
Oh,
Do you have
favorite
any?
favorite
Yeah,
scenes, it's hard because the whole movie is sort of, like, in itself just
one big scene.
one
It
big
seems
scene,
like.
one big
Yeah,
experience. I would think, like I did notice, it seems to take a turn, the movie really starts taking a turn when, he kicks that map into the creek. I think
yeah,
that's kind of
yeah,
a memorable scene. And the ending for me obviously will always be memorable. Well, in the scene where she's obviously crying to the camera
yeah. That's the one I was
and
going to bring
and
up.
she's
Yeah,
and she's got the nose boogies, and that's
yeah.
what's always parodied too by, like, Sherry O'Terry. It's like a huge bubble. They took it up to a huge bubble coming out of her nose. But, yeah, I think those stand out to me, as far as
Yeah.
this movie goes, yeah.
Yeah, and I think because when you, or at least when I hear about Blair Witch, those are the scenes that the ending. Well, they don't really always show the ending, but it's always referred to. But yeah, that scene where she's crying into the camera. But I also think
Oh,
that
yeah.
like the scene where they find the rock piles outside
Oh,
of
the
their tents.
teeth
Yeah.
and the
Oh, yeah,
teeth,
that part too. Yeah.
the teeth.
I mean, there's just so many
Or the
creepy little
clawing at the
things.
tent, the little the
Yeah.
yeah, that clawing at
So
the
they
tent.
didn't know that that was going to happen. That was the producers and all the people that were making the
Oh,
film,
that's so funny.
and the cast didn't know that that was going to happen. And when the cast signed up for the movie, they actually signed up in the contract. It said that they were going to get their minds messed with, and so they had people like there's a part in it too where they're running and she's like, "Oh my god, what was that? What was that?"
Yeah,
And I guess the camera guy was supposed to pan left and you're gonna see like somebody all dressed in white
yeah,
and in the shadows, but he didn't pan and they never reshot it, so it just became like I
yeah.
think that added to it. I think that
Well,
added to the
sometimes it's the
creepiness.
stuff that happens off camera that is definitely the
Yeah,
scariest for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm a fan of
um,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, there no, those are great. Overall, it's still a
um,
great movie.
yeah. Oh no, I think it holds up well. I think just talking about it now, I think with you is kind of turning my opinion of it because honestly I was watching it and thinking like because I had to watch Nightmare on Elm Street as well,
Oh, yeah.
and so I remember watching that this week and thinking, oh, I remember, oh yeah, this and that and the other thing. But with
Iconic.
this one, like I said, I hadn't seen it since I saw it in theaters. Excuse me. Wow.
Oh, you're good.
And so I was expecting like, oh, I remember the hype for this movie, and then when I watched it, I was kind of
Yeah,
okay, all right. And then at the end, obviously, it got me. But
yeah,
now, talking about these individual kind of little things that happen, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I remember.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, to
so
today's standards, it's like it's not, that's why I'm thinking, if it was made today, it would
yeah,
definitely benefit from some strategic planning
yeah,
of the camera work a little more,
right.
and then maybe, some extra sound design, I think, to enhance the fear.
I think you're right. Yeah, with the
Yeah,
sound design, I think that just adds to anything. I mean, the new Dune movies. Did you see those movies with the sound
loved it.
design in those movies?
Everything was 10 out of
Yeah,
10 with those movies.
yeah,
The second one
um,
I saw in a Dolby theater, right?
yeah. I saw it. Me too.
And
Yeah,
and it go and so what's so cool is that Dolby theaters, I believe, have, and I could be wrong here, but over 120 speakers, I believe, or 150 or something crazy like that.
yeah,
And so when a ship flies over your head, you
yeah.
feel it fly over your head. The
Right.
subwoofers
Yeah,
in those theaters are amazing, and then also the picture. I mean, that movie, those movies are a work of art. They look incredible. The director
yeah.
just knocked it out of the park.
We should do a pod on those
Oh,
movies.
I loved it, man.
If you
I
want to.
blown away. And then honestly, Timothy Chalamet, I gotta say, like, and I've never, I guess, not to say I haven't been a fan of him, it's just I never really
Right.
thought about him specifically as an actor, but when I saw him carry this whole movie, this was a huge moment for him. I mean, he was
I got
incredible.
yeah.
That monologue that he had, it was
Yeah.
yeah, he really shined in the movie for sure.
Yeah, he surprised me with the strength that he had
Yeah,
to actually convey, or the ability to convey strength,
yeah,
because I never really looked at him as sort of this, "Rrr,"
I
but he
know.
did it. He
I think
convinced me, man.
Paul Atreides, and it's funny is I'm actually and I'm gonna get probably some funny comments for this one, but I'm a fan of the David Lynch version, and not even David
Yeah.
Lynch is a fan of it, but I'm such a Lynch
Yeah.
fan that I'll take any Lynch I can get, any amount of it that I
Yeah.
can get. And so, his footprint, even though it wasn't entirely his vision from I know that he looks back at it and he regrets it, you see his footprint all over that movie. His style is all over that movie,
Yeah.
and there's still a lot of what was done in that movie that I can still see preserved in this.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's
Exactly.
and I don't know if it's the director being inspired by David Lynch or if it's just really them, the book being that descriptive in its writing. I
Yeah.
haven't read the
Uh-huh.
books, which I know the books are incredible from what I hear,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I thought the David Lynch movie was fun. I really enjoyed a lot
Yeah,
about
me
it.
too.
He
Yeah.
tried to cram 2 movies into one, I think,
Yeah.
and that's a
Yeah.
tall order.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of this, similarities in the scenes and so on.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Yeah.
Kyle MacLachlan, I thought did a good job with that character too. But,
Yeah.
Timothy Chalamet, he owns it. I think
Yeah.
he really killed
He
it.
pulled it off,
The
man.
whole cast killed it.
Yeah.
I thought, I liked the action a lot. Zendaya, had, I think was bringing it too with,
Yeah.
the action scenes, she's, doing the what's it
Yeah.
called?
Yeah.
Just tumbling in the sand, picking up the gun, that was it was
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we should definitely talk about that. Do a podcast on
I know, yeah,
Dune,
I'm,
and because
gonna
there's a
talk
new
about it all now.
series. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a new series is coming out on Max in November.
Oh, that's
Uh,
right.
they're they're doing Dune. What's it?
Is it Prophecy?
Yeah,
I think
Dune
that's what it's called.
Prophecy.
It's
Yeah,
about the, I wanna call them nuns, but they're not nuns.
yeah.
They are
I can't remember. See,
the mother,
I should remember.
the
Yeah,
something, the something, I don't know. I forget. Oh, no, it's a certain word. I can't remember what it is, but I
yeah,
enjoy it. It's
yeah,
really
yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, really quick,
Yeah.
if Blair Witch, if it was remade today, who do you think you would put in a remake?
Hmm.
I mean,
Remake
because I
re
think part of the allure is that you didn't know these actors, because if you put in Brad Pitt or
I
somebody, you'd
know.
be
I
like,
was
oh, that's
gonna
Brad Pitt.
okay, so I don't know a whole lot of young actors, although I
Yeah.
do feel like Jenna Ortega really she's been killing it. We just watched, Beetlejuice the other night, and she
Oh,
was great, I loved Beetlejuice.
yeah. Okay.
That I thought, "How could you make a better sequel?" I really don't
Right.
think you can.
Yeah.
I really thought it was fun, and I think, when I saw her in Scream, one of the new Screams, she was really good at being acting afraid. That's not easy to
Hmm.
do. I felt the fear that
Yeah.
she was, emoting on the
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like she would probably be like somebody like that who can actually internalize the fear. That's not an easy feat to do. Just the other night, I just want to say, because
Sure.
I was wondering, can you make a movie like The Blair Witch today?
I don't know.
And I watched, Hell House LLC is a movie that everybody's been talking about. My brother
Oh,
recommended it to me, and I saw some
yeah.
TikTok posts about it. And I watched it, and it really picked up in the second half, and what was really good, there is some the it got really scary. The way that they uh, the way that their camera strategy is a good example of what I'm talking about,
Okay.
start
Yeah.
of not making it overly too shaky all the time. And then also the sound design, they had surround sound,
Oh,
in
okay.
there and
Yeah.
some impact bass hits, things like that. It was really scary at certain scenes, But the challenge was is it was a similar format where, they try to do the backstory with the characters in the beginning and get you more familiar with them,
Yeah.
uh, and I feel like the cast, I'm not trying to overly criticize here. I feel like a cast did a really great job, but did they have the same charisma as the Blair Witch cast, or was the writing as interesting? I don't know. But then also, I don't know that if I'm looking at it from too much of a nostalgic lens. But Hell House LLC, it shows that you can make a movie like that, I think, today for sure.
I'll check it
The
out.
scares were good. The scares were
Yeah.
really I don't wanna give too much away, but it was shot, they had this documentary style, about it. And I purposely watched it after because my brother recently recommended it, and I recently saw Blair Witch, and I thought, "You know what? Let's
Yeah.
watch that before I talk to you." But I think it's worth checking out for sure. It's streaming somewhere.
Hell House LLC. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's these
Okay.
people that
I'm gonna write this down.
they make a haunted house out of an abandoned hotel, somewhere in upstate New York, and that's the premise,
Ah.
and a lot of, like, creepy stuff is happening there.
Well, my friend
Yeah.
also, we're going to do a podcast on It Follows. Have you heard of that one?
Loved It Follows. Yeah.
Okay, don't tell me anything about it because I gotta watch it.
Oh, yeah, the
But
soundtrack especially is such a great part of that. Yeah, enjoy the soundtrack.
oh yeah.
The lead actress was just in, Longlegs, which I
Oh,
saw
okay.
in theaters too,
Yeah.
and that was really good. Really enjoyed that one too, but she's
Yeah.
kind of a scream queen, in her own right. She's getting these,
Yeah, I
like
remember those Scream Queens. Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, with Jamie Curtis.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you as a review of this Blair Witch? What do you give it out of 10?
I would say 8 out of 10,
8 out of 10.
10 being perfect,
Yeah.
6 being good, right? Or sorry, 7
Yeah.
being good. I'd say 8 out of 10, it's great,
Well, 5 being average too. So
Yeah,
if you
5
do
being
a 5,
average,
that's all right. Yeah.
yeah, but I would say yeah, 7 being good, 8 being great. I would say
Okay.
it's great. It
Sweet.
still holds up today in my opinion. Yeah, a couple things that I think, it could have benefited from. Now I'd give it a 4 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10 if those actors were really as screwed as we think they were.
Yeah.
Because if they didn't collect any royalties or anything past that day rate, then yeah, no,
Yeah.
then 3 out of
Yeah.
10 in my
Yeah.
opinion. So, that's
I
my
but I
2
yeah,
cents.
I think um again, I forgot what I was just about to say. Anyways, my review.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. I would have liked to have seen maybe another scene of them kind of like having fun or something, or identifying with each other a little bit more. I know they had that one scene in the hotel where they're drinking,
Yeah.
but I think I would have loved to have seen another one of them kind of bonding a little bit more. But other than that,
But that's funny
I,
because Hell House does exactly that, this other
oh,
movie that
okay,
I'm,
yeah,
recommending, but I
yeah,
thought I wish they would have gotten to the scares a little sooner. I thought it was a little too
yeah,
much,
yeah,
yeah, a little too much exposition,
right,
because when it's not shot beautifully on an amazing camera, it starts not catching you like your
right,
sole attention,
yeah,
I think, and so you have to be real creative with the storytelling and the pace. But for
yeah,
those, if you have that in mind, watch it, get to the scares, and once it starts getting scary, it's really, really
yeah,
great and fun.
yeah.
But, yeah,
Amen to that.
I agree, but I know what you mean though.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
because there were times when I was like, oh God, I would really just deck him if I could, or
Oh, I know.
shut up, Heather.
That's so
I
funny.
just really didn't have that kind of bond or that attachment to these people. I mean, I did a little bit, especially as you get further into the movie. But I think in the middle, for me, the middle was kind of it kind of sank a little bit and didn't really hold my attention as much as I wanted it to. But
Yeah.
as soon as you make it to like the last third of the movie, then you're kind of invested and you're like, oh, here it comes.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
For
So
sure. Well, especially
yeah.
her screaming at the end is just bone
Uh,
chilling. For sure.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see the remake now and seeing that. You know, what's funny is in Canopy Made today, well, Apple just came out with, or not just, but recently over the past year, started allowing for satellite text messages and I
Oh,
think
really?
SOS signals or something, you
Okay.
know, or there's
Yeah.
some other feature, but you can now send help with a satellite. So technically speaking, I think that's the last that might you're gonna have to
Yeah.
make these movies pre this feature of the iPhone because, uh,
Well,
you know, or set in that time period of
right.
before we could text a satellite our, you know,
Well, another
emergency
thing
message.
too, another little ding is that, if you find a river or a stream, just follow it downstream,
Yeah, oh,
and
for
and
sure.
eventually you'll find something.
But she
But
that witch was messing with their heads though, man,
yeah,
and so,
yeah,
I guess, you know, you could, you know, write something where not even the satellite messages are going through and like
that's true.
because she
Yeah,
was messing with the compass, right?
yeah,
She had
right.
some maybe some sorta magnetic pull, spell
And
towards her.
yeah,
They were trying to go
yeah.
south, then they tried to go east, and they'd end up just going in circles.
Remember that scene when they come to that log
Yeah.
again, and she's just like, "It's not the same. It's not the
Oh
same."
my gosh.
Oh my god.
She knows she it's I gotta say, it's the acting is crucial for
Yeah,
a found footage movie, and Blair Witch Project is such a great example of that.
yeah.
Those actors deserve to get all the royalties owed to them. I mean, they made that movie
Absolutely.
because I've
Yeah.
seen other examples, and then when the actors don't, you know, they could be at a 7 or an 8, but the actors in Blair Witch were at a 10, you know, the whole
Yeah.
movie.
Well,
It was
they just got an outline, so you're just like, you just have to hit these points, and they hit them,
they
for the
really
most
did.
part.
Well, it's
So,
believable. It really was
yeah,
believable, and I think that's what makes the movie as good as it is, in my opinion.
yeah. Well, it's a great place to start. Oh yeah, my review. I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
give it a 7.
You're gonna give
Yeah,
it
that's
7
what
out
I
of 10.
give it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
7 out of 10. Yeah,
It's
it's
yeah.
a good movie. It holds up for what it is, and it kind of spawned this whole kind of new genre of horror movies, found footage, and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
I think,
absolutely. It deserves recognition for that, I think, alone.
yeah,
It being such a
definitely.
moment in pop culture,
Yeah,
you know, everybody was
definitely.
talking about it.
Okay, cool, man. Well, thanks again for coming on. This was Eric Lee. Thanks for coming on my pod and
Yeah.
legitimizing it.
Happy to be here.
um, yeah. And so, like I said, his new single's always on my mind. It's a cover. And you can follow him on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Eric Lee Music.
That's me.
And his website is also ericlee.music.
Yep.
And yeah, I suggest you go and check him out because really talented, and inspires me to play. I play music too, and when I heard his stuff, I was like, I gotta get back on this thing. And so, thank you for that,
I
dude.
appreciate you, brother. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
got
I'll
me
be
that
seeing you in a
buzz.
couple weeks, man. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool, man. All right, well, and thanks for watching the Gonna See My Friends podcast, and I'll be back next week. Later.
Peace.
Peace.